Thank you, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Chain Reaction. So, I got a special guest today. A lot of you know who he is, Jared Flinn. He's the operating partner and co-founder of BulkLoads, Smart Freight Funding, and Bulk Insurance Group. Three companies that are transforming the bulk freight sector. That's a lot of stuff that you got going on there. You have 2 decades in the logistics and trucking space, and you're recognized as a leading innovator in technology for transportation, financing, and insurance for carriers and shippers. I know you're really passionate about it because if you follow him on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of the stuff that he posts. Jared's work helped digitize and modernize one of the most complex and traditional segments of the supply chain, bulk freight. From founding BulkLoads.com, which is a digital load board connecting shippers and carriers, to launching Smart Freight Funding and Bulk Insurance Group, he's built a connected ecosystem that really simplifies operations and strengthens cash flows and improve safety and compliance because, as you guys know, that's the biggest issues that the space has with our trucking friends. You've been recognized in FreightWave's top 100 most influential people in trucking in Springfield Business Journal's 40 under 40, and you continue to be a voice for modernizing the community for the transportation industry. So welcome, and that is a lot. You've done a lot.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that. Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but I think we always feel like we're still on day one. We're still in the beginning.
So I gave you an idea of a couple things I was going to ask you on this podcast, and then I was just fooling around with the internet and I realized something that's unique about you. You have a twin brother
I do.
right
Yep.
there. And when I first saw this picture, I'm like, well, this is Jared because that's him. And then I read this, and I always think that is really cool. Now, obviously, you shaved, and we talked about that right before we came on. But you guys look like identical twins, and I'm curious if you guys get confused for each other, if you play pranks on each other that way with family members or distant friends that might not be able to tell you guys apart. Because I grew up with some friends that were twins, and a couple of them we couldn't tell apart. A couple of them we could. So I'm just curious
Yeah.
how the dynamics work between you and your brother.
So my twin brother Jesse, first off, we think we're identical. You have to actually have, I think, DNA test or testing done to truly say you're identical. But yeah, I think we look close enough alike that people think or consider us identical. But yeah, we're there was five of us kids, so I'm like second, third. My twin brother's third, and we were grew up on the farm, so yeah, we were super close. Even today, I always say that my best friends are my brothers, and then I would consider my twin brother probably one of my best friends, just because we grew up together, we experienced life together. Like when we were in high school, we I mean, we hung out together. I mean, when we went out on Friday nights and Saturdays, it was with my twin brother, and other friends. When I chose to go to college, I went to the University of Missouri. He stayed back and joined the construction field, which he's still involved today, and he's worked his way up through the ranks. So that was kind of a pivotal point that we've kind of separated. We weren't together as much, but we talk on the phone weekly, and it's just crazy. It's interesting as my kids have grown up. Even recently, every time, sometimes they'll be like, "You look like Uncle Jesse." I'm like, "Well, we are twins, so I think we should look alike." But there'll be, and especially if I go home, we were home for Thanksgiving, and especially when my kids and my wife see my brother and I hang out, they're like, "It's crazy how eerily your mannerisms are. Your jokes are the same. You smile the same way." So
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. What's funny is a lot of people always say like, "What's it like being a twin?" And I don't mean to be condescending when I say this, but I'm like, I don't know what it's like not to be one.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, it's been a blessing to have him, and he's an awesome person, hard worker. He's worked his way up. So yeah, we're both super blessed.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I just wanted to bring that up because I always find that interesting. Like I said, I went to high school with multiple sets of twins, and it was cool to see the dynamic, between them. They seem to know each other better than most siblings know each other.
Yeah, we took totally different paths. So a lot of people in my ecosystem hemisphere have no idea that I have a twin brother. So they always think that's odd when, bringing that up. They're like, "Oh my gosh, there's another person that looks just like you walking around."
When I saw that picture you posted, I thought that was you. And I read the thing with my twin brother. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of University of Missouri, I had a buddy play tight end there, but I was recently right by their campus at an appointment. But I actually was on the St. Louis campus for the University of Missouri and did a run around their campus. And I mean, that's a great part of the world. You know, the actual University of Missouri campus looks spectacular. I didn't spend much time, because we were only there for a few hours, but that's a great place.
Yeah, thank you. I was heavily involved in the ag department, graduated with an ag degree in Missouri. For those people that don't know, I mean, obviously we're right smack here in the Midwest, but it's super diversified. I mean, we got heavy crops on in the north side of the state, huge cattle production in the south. We got cotton on the east. So yeah, we're in a very diversified agricultural state,
That's awesome.
which is really cool.
I saw a video that you posted. I want to talk about kind of what inspired you to start BulkLoads and what you were doing a ride along with. You didn't know it at the time, but one of your customers, right? You just
Yeah.
recently posted this, and you asked them like, "Hey, what do you use?" And they're like, "We use you," right? And I read your post, and it was really cool that you wrote about helping people and how you do it. What inspired you to start BulkLoads?
Yeah, I've said this before, but again, just got to go back to my childhood. But where you have your pain, you'll find your passion. Grew up in small town America, and growing up in that environment, I wanted to get out of it as much as possible. Actually, I was just reflecting on this just a day or two ago. But like, I was so envious of my buddies that lived in the city, that got to do more city things and experiences, and just that easier life. Where I grew up in this hardship of farming and agriculture. We lived in an old farmhouse. We did a little bit of everything, but my dad and uncle had a sawmill. But yeah, just man, every day having to grow up in that environment
It's a
and
grind.
how tough it was, and really wanting to get out of it and not wanting to be stuck in that. But, I'm in my 40s now, but you start reflecting and I look back and I say, man, that was like the biggest blessing that I ever could have wished for to have. I got to experience a lot of things a lot of kids don't get to experience growing up. And I'll say this for me, and I just always pray I can do this for my kids. Like, I felt a sense of belonging for the family. And I felt like it depended on us for survival. And I can go deep when I say that, but like, there's a whole different meaning when you know that, hey, your existence has purpose for your family. So that was just how, growing up on the farm, I was very passionate about that. Fast forward again, went to the University of Missouri, studied agriculture. It was the only thing I knew, so that's what I studied, but I knew I didn't want to go back into agriculture. The agriculture that I knew was rough. The people I knew didn't seem like they prospered very well. There wasn't a lot of wealth gained. But my one of my first jobs, I worked for a large grain trading company in Kansas City, and it was my first glimpse to see that, wow, agribusiness is huge in the United States, but wait, there's actually money that is made. And if you
Yeah.
do it right and know the market's right, man, there's just a lot of opportunity out there. But I found my sweet spot on the trucking side. And for those that don't know, the grain industry is really a logistics puzzle. And what I mean by that, there's grain all over the United States, North America, Canada, even down into Mexico. But the companies that are successful are the ones that can move it very efficiently, and that's through all your modes of transportation from vessel, barge, rail, and truck.
Yeah.
One of my first jobs was really understanding the truck market and why wheat goes one direction and corn goes another direction and feed ingredients go one direction and fertilizer. But more importantly is, how do you match that up efficiently? The other thing that I really found out that I just never knew about trucking was, I thought trucking was these big mega fleets all over the highway, the JB Hunts, the Warners, Swifts, Knights, go through the whole list. But in agriculture, when I started looking at the market, it was like, man, the people that I was dealing with, it was these owner operators. They were the 1 to 2 truck operators. And then you study the market to come find out that 90+% of the whole trucking industry in the US are these owner operators. Those
They
big
are.
mega fleets are less than 7% of the whole trucking
Which
ecosystem.
is
So
wild because some of these guys have 10,000 plus power units, right?
yeah,
5,000 plus power units. Anything over 200 plus power units is a very sophisticated organization. But the majority, and us being in the telematics space, I mean, we see it all the time. These one, two, three micro fleets, owner operators, this is like the heartbeat of the space.
yeah. So that's where I camped out on. But more importantly, I went back to my youth thinking of those small businesses, those farmers, small truckers that were kind of scraping by. And it just planted a seed in me to say, how can we revolutionize this industry? And again, this is early 2000s. So technology was really getting on the forefront. Mobile apps were coming out. And that's where I just saw
The internet
the
was
internet was
booming.
starting to boom. Yeah. So that's where I was just like, how do we take some of this technology and empower small businesses? So that was really the brainchild that started BulkLoads to say, how do we make this more efficient? And again, for me, I wasn't looking at the big fleets, and they're all important, and we cater to all different shapes and sizes of trucking. But I guess for me, and even still today, my heart is for that small owner operator,
Yep.
which makes up a huge amount. And I think that's where, some people can look at these big mega companies and if we just land these big sharks is what they call, or big whales, I'm sorry, hey, we land these big whales, that's enough. And for me, it's like, no, there's thousands of these other ones out there that need help, and those thousands make up a really big network as well. So yeah, that's what shaped BulkLoads. But then just listening to the customers have really pioneered these other business units that we have today. And yeah, I like to say, you mentioned a few and a couple of few that maybe not on our bio, but we really have 6 different entities that we make up today. So we do everything from load board match, freight matching through our load board, to factoring, to insurance, but we also have a TMS system, to permitting, and a fuel card. And yeah, we're not done yet. And if we have time, we'll talk about some of the other ones that are on our horizon.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, continuing with technology development and continuing with technology innovation, I always look at our platform and I say, hey, man, if you can get things from a single spot, it's a lot easier than bolting a whole lot of stuff together, right? And, from what I see on the website, and I don't know about what's coming, but it looks like you guys have continuously evolved that platform to give your customers more and more options to help their business.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll say this again, it's always nice to reflect back and look at all those, but every business unit, every thought, every idea, man, there's been pain along the way to do that. And people don't ever realize it's like, yeah, you celebrate those wins, but sometimes you forget about like the hardships that it got to get there, the people that said no, or the failures, the technology that didn't work. And I just always want to acknowledge that, because some people look back, it's like, man, dude, that's
You've had it
awesome. And I'm like,
easy. You've had it
yeah,
easy.
yeah. And it's just like, man,
I mean,
there's a reason why I don't have any hair on top of my head. And that's why, I
hey,
mean,
man, we're in the
yeah,
same boat. I get
there's a
it.
lot of, yeah,
Especially a year like this year where there's been a lot of indecision, right, in the sales front. And there's been a lot of punting, based on the freight recession and things like that. I mean, how are you guys coping with that from a sales effort, from a dealing with your customers' perspective? I don't know if you're in a position where customers are coming to you for some relief, or if you're doing anything wild on the sales front. But I'm just curious, how are you guys dealing with it? Because there is a lot of pressure on these carriers in today's world, and a lot of pressure on the shippers, to grind the carriers and the brokers down. So, what are you seeing out there?
yeah. So I'll say this humbly, we're having one of our best years ever on bulk loads and a lot of other platforms. And I think this is the reason why when business is good, some of our resources aren't needed. When freight is plush in the market, you don't need to be searching for loads. If your cash flow is good, you don't need to be doing factoring.
Right.
If your operating cost ratio is running good, you don't need to be shopping around insurance. Where the market's been challenging, so carriers are looking for every nook and cranny to save money and how to be more efficient. So we're showing those solutions through our load board. Hey, we can find other opportunities to match up freight. We can diversify your fleet. If you're thinking about just doing aggregate hauling, maybe we have some opportunities where you can do grain or feed ingredients or something else to do that. Maybe there's some other innovations there on the factoring. Hey, we have solutions to keep you cash flow positive. On insurance, we have some markets that maybe can save you, even if it is a couple $1,000s per truck. I mean, you do that across
A
4 or 5
lot.
trucks,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother deal. So yeah, I think that's where I mean, I'll say this, day one, we're in it for the long haul and the long game. And we try to keep our costs really low, because we know for our carriers that, I mean, it's the lifeblood of this industry.
I
So
totally,
I'll
I
say that,
totally.
yeah, I mean, despite it's been challenging times across the market, our companies, we've been thriving. But I'll say this, I wouldn't say every customer, but Jerry, a lot of our customers are having a great year. I mean, despite I think agriculture, yeah, there's been some pressure with tariffs and some of this other, but for the most part, the grain industry's had a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
Crops have been good across the Midwest and the grain
The
belt.
weather's been
And
good. I mean,
yep, weather's been good. So for us, it doesn't it doesn't necessarily matter. It does, but like it doesn't matter whether corn's $5 a bushel or $3 a bushel. If there's a big if there's big production of it, it's got to get moved through the supply chain.
yeah,
We were just talking with a co-op that we work with in the upper Dakotas, and I mean they've piled like I think it was 2 million bushels of corn in excess this year just because they didn't have the space to do it. We were up in Canada last month. I mean, they've had to get innovative on figuring out other grain storage. They're putting it all in these, it looks like marshmallows, but these long super sacks. So, yeah, the grain industry's been good. And that, I mean, if the grain industry, if there's a lot of production, it's got to get moved. And that puts pressure on trucking.
now I get it. It's got to get moved, and I completely agree with that. When you take a look at some of these owner operators and smaller fleets, right? I always talk about sophistication issue. Sometimes with technology is a little bit of a challenge. You guys offer a lot of stuff. You guys offer a lot of great tools that can help these guys. How do you get your carriers to adopt the new tools and to put them into play?
That's a big question, and it's not easy. One thing we try to pride ourselves on, we try to say that we try to keep things. Well, I'll say this: a lot of our carriers, one things we hear all the time when someone signs up on bulk loads or is using one of our apps, hey, I'm not very tech savvy, and we say, awesome, we can help you with that. So if you look at the way we've designed a lot of our website to our mobile apps, we try to keep that in mind, knowing that a lot of our drivers our users are going to be older. They're not going to be in that younger generation that grew up in this technology. So I think that's just one thing that we've learned to cope with. I think that just creates a lot more hand holding. We have a full customer support stack of people that are working with our customers all the time. We're not trying to just automate everything where you have to talk to an AI bot or whatever. I mean, I think those technologies are coming down the road, but we still keep things very old fashioned because we know people still want to talk with
I,
people.
we do the same thing, man. When you call, you get somebody in Knoxville or somebody in the United States, and they pick up the phone. So I totally am picking up what you're putting down. And talking about automation, right? You talked about the AI bots. When you look at the industry, right? I mean, everybody's trying to do better, and AI is here to help. People think it's a magic bullet or not very smart, in my opinion, but it's there to help certain cases that it can help with. And when you take a look at AI automation, and then you take a look at the human approach, right? How do you guys, how are you guys looking to balance that so that your customers feel, that they're getting good service, but at the same time, you feel like, hey, if you need to change password, the AI bot can walk you through it. You know?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a balancing act, and again, as more people are adopting using AI and AI methods, I think we're just kind of we're innovating as that comes. But I heard a stat the other day. People talk. Some people still think it's a fad, but like last I heard, was it 2 billion users now? Or 2 billion people now using AI systems. And for me personally, I've realized that especially if it comes to drafting an email or sending a message, like I can have that proofread and drafted through an AI quicker and I can be more productive. So I say that to myself, me being, very ADHD and hard, but I think that's one thing people got to be open to like, hey, is this a way that can make you more efficient, to save you time, but allow you to focus on other things that can grow your business. And that's just it. And if you look at the marketplace, it's about finding every little corner that you can save. Like the companies I meet, it's not just one thing that they're doing, but it's a combination of all these that are either saving them money or they're making them just a little bit more here. And I think that's what it really matters in trucking more than anything, because again, if you look at trucking, the market, people get upset when you hear this, but the market's the market. And you talk to the big leaders out there, it's like you can't control what the market's doing, but you can control your operation and cost to a certain extent. And I think that's what we've been trying to preach to people over the years of like, man, look at where you can cut to keep profitability.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you guys rolled something out, if I'm not mistaken, something called smart freight funding, and it's become a key part of your ecosystem. At least that's the research that I did in preparing for this. Why was that important, in your opinion, as a critical gap to solve for your customers?
Yeah, so smart funding is our factoring arm, and I'll back up a little bit. Before I started BulkLoads, I worked for a large grain company. Factoring companies were just kind of starting to get used, but the company I was working for, Bartlett, we paid same day. And this is like, you go back 20 years, it was still, you get an invoice in, original copies, you'd send it to accounts payable, then they would mail a check out. So you think about the whole process from the time a guy was, invoicing, dropping in the mail to probably getting that check back. That's probably still a 7 to 10 day window when
And
you
they
took in the
went,
mail. Well, a lot of these guys, they just couldn't wait that long. They had to have that cash flow quick. Trucking is a very cash intensive business. Sometimes for every dollar you make, it costs 95 cents, so you got all that cash built up ahead of time that you're forking out before you get that back. After we started BulkLoads, we started talking to a lot of our customers, and many were asking us, hey, who should I use to factor? I know that I have to use factoring. I personally was against it. I said, like, if you can avoid factoring, still today, if you don't have to use a factoring company and have them where they charge money, deal direct. We started Smart Freight Funding to be a factoring arm for those people that needed that help. But the one thing that separates us from other factoring companies, and I think some have caught on as the market's gotten more competitive, we said, hey, if you got a grain elevator or someone that's paying you quick, deal with them directly. Just invoice them. But if you got an account over here that you found on BulkLoads, and maybe it's a large company that pays net 30, 40 days, we'll factor those, and we'll do it at a small rate, usually 2 or 3%. But you do it as you need. Other factoring companies weren't doing that. They make these carriers sign an agreement that
all or
you have to
nothing.
factor 100% of your receivables. And if you decide to break that agreement, sometimes it's a $5,000 penalty that they got to pay. Or you have to factor so much every week, and say your truck breaks down, you still owe that factoring company a minimum if you don't factor anything. So because of that, we said, no, we can't do that. Let's start a factoring company that we can cater to these needs and really make it a lot easier, a lot frictionless for these companies. So that was the reason Smart Freight Funding got started. And yeah, it's one of our key businesses today. Again, we don't require anybody to use it. It's another business in our ecosystem. If people want to use it, that are finding loads on that, or anybody can use it without any of our other products. But yeah, it's been one that we're very proud of, and it's been one of our biggest business units.
Yeah, I'm sure it creates a lot of relief for your customers, for those that need it. And speaking of that, when you look at cash flow and really access to capital, in your opinion, obviously that's a mental relief, right?
The
For
peace of
drivers and
mind.
for carriers. How does that influence safety for carriers and really long-term business health? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, right? I mean, if for every dollar you collect, it costs you 95 cents. It's a very cash intensive business. That's not easy to deal with, right? I mean, a couple of bad winter storms and we got a problem here. So, what are your thoughts on that?
From a safety standpoint,
Yeah,
or
for example, if they can get access to cash quicker, right? I mean, maybe they have a truck repair that they've let go because they don't have the money for it, right? Or maybe there's some jobs that they've turned down because they don't have, they can't get the 200 miles that they need to
yeah,
get to from a gas perspective. Things like that, right? I mean, I'm
no,
sure that it's been all great, but what are your thoughts on that?
no, honestly, that's a great question. And I can think about this personally. It's like, for me personally, like when I've been cash flow strapped, I tend not to make the best decisions for me or my family, or even my business. If a lot of times I have to make, you know, quick decisions or maybe even desperate decisions for the survival of my business or family. So yeah, I think that's one thing when we're talking about smart freight, if you don't need it, you don't need it. But man, we're selling a peace of mind that you don't have to worry about, that check getting deposited the next day. That a lot of our carriers know when they factor, that money is in their bank account. They can sleep at night knowing the next morning they have cash in their operating account. And I think that's just it. But you think that allows them, if that's something that you're focused on or stressed about, then you're not focused on the other things in your business, whether it's, you know, you said safety, but like I was thinking in the words of like, you're not worried about making physical safety of your business, like making sure you're running that equipment well, making sure that you're doing the safe things out on the road, which is
Yep.
imperative for a lot of these guys. So yeah, I think it all ties together. But yeah, when we are stressed or when we have anxiety, which a lot of it can be caused from money and financial reasons, we make poor decisions. So yeah, I think that's one thing that we don't want people to operate in that environment. And yeah, it's you just know this when cash flow is tight, you don't make the best decisions for your business.
I completely agree with you. Same thing at home, right? I mean, I completely agree with you.
Yep.
So, so let's switch it up to insurance. Insurance is a big thing. Like I deal with a lot of insurance companies. Our customers, sometimes are mandated for telematics and cameras and things like that. And you created Bulk Insurance Group, right? Insurance costs major concern for a lot of our customers. A lot of carriers in the space. It's right up there with gas and diesel and all that stuff. But what led you to really create this? I mean, you talked about the factoring company and listening to your customers. Is this another example where that was the same thing?
Yeah, a little bit of that. I think number one, we realize that not everybody needs bulk loads. There are carriers out there that they have great relationships. They don't need to be looking for other loads on the board. Not all carriers need factoring. Some carriers, they can deal directly and get paid directly. But one thing we know is for a fact, and you and I are both the same, every driver on the road has to have insurance, and every trucker on the road has to have commercial insurance. They have to have liability and cargo coverage. Bigger companies often also have to have work comp. So we saw that that was another one. And again, I don't have to tell you, when you say insurance, there's a negative connotation to it. There's
Negative.
nothing fun when you think about insurance. It's, you're buying a risk, a risk policy if
Nobody's
something
telling
were
you.
to
Let
happen.
me tell you about my guy. Let me
Yeah.
tell you. Let me tell you about. It's unbelievable. Like as soon as you say the word insurance, it's like you get the eye roll. You know.
So we saw that, again, where there's a problem in the industry, how do we create an opportunity for that? We knew that we already had a captive market of carriers that we were in our ecosystem. So why not be able to go out there and provide? The other thing, and this was probably just as important, if not more, we're in the agricultural industry, the bulk industry. A lot of our guys that use our systems are very favorable to insurance companies, and a couple of reasons why. A lot of these guys that we're dealing with, they grew up on the farm, they know how to operate machinery, they're safe on that. A lot of them run in smaller radiuses. Well, I started looking at the market. There was no insurance companies out there that were really focused on the bulk carriers. A lot of them, they were, again, after the big mega fleets because they're bigger premiums. They're focused on other regional stuff. So it was another reason I said, why can't we go out and really develop a market for these agricultural bulk carriers and really shop them? Because if you put them in front of an insurance and they see that opportunity, that's going to be very favorable for these insurance companies. So that was another thing that really led to starting Bulk Insurance Group. And yeah, it's been great. We're on year 3, 4 with it. And it takes, just like anything, every business unit, and I think this is just for anybody who wants to start a business, you have to have a 3, 4, 5 year plan. It does, nothing happens overnight. But yeah, that business unit really over the last year, we've made some mistakes along the way. Just trying to figure out markets and process. But it's one of the businesses we're most proud of today. It's really been well, and again, phenomenal carriers that we're working with, and again, I think I like a little bit of Amazon, but if you can get everything in one spot from frictionless, because the thing is with these guys on our load board, even factoring, we have 70, 80% of their information that we need just to plug into insurance. So that's another key thing that for us, so
Yeah.
like the more that we have these guys in our ecosystem, we can move them into these other business units that they need and really kind of make that just an easier process for them. A lot of our guys are like, I would say like me, but like a lot of these guys, they're not working, in the business financials. These guys are truck drivers, owner
Yep.
operators. They want to be driving the truck. They want people to, do that stuff for them. So we become that company that's doing that back office functions.
That's awesome, man. So, you know, the government always tries to play a role, right? I mean, you have federal, you have state insurance regulations. How's that impact your carriers? As the government continues to change regulations, whether it's at the state level, the federal level. I mean, there's got to be some sort of an impact, as a speed change and any kind of additional coverage requirements.
Yeah. I'll say this: as I've evolved in the industry, I've realized that I can have more of a voice for the industry. And one of my ambitions that I've slowly been kind of crawling into is how can I be a better representative for our industry on the state level, on the federal level. And we've joined organizations. I serve on the motor carrier committee for the National Grain and Feed Association. Um, we're a part of the Missouri Trucking Association. But for me, I see the next evolution of my life, of Jared's life, of really going in from a national level to how do we really help our industry and really get more into Washington. I wouldn't have said that probably 15, 20 years ago. But just as we've grown, it's like, man, I look at what I've been blessed with, but really what God's blessed me with, and how can I help influence the industry? So, but yeah, it's big. I mean, we're watching all the time. I, uh, I every day I'm watching news articles and information, whether it's different regulations or laws that are going into effect or proposals, whether it's weight limits, whether ELD stuff. So yeah, it's something that I probably wasn't as involved with early on, but we are being more involved because we know how much it impacts our industry.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. So you mentioned a little bit of this a few minutes ago when you talk about your ecosystem and how many different areas you can interact with your customers and the information you collect. But when you look at the data that you can get or your customers can get from your load board, from your TMS system, you know, how do you see your carriers using those data and insights to help improve either performance or safety when it comes to their business?
Yeah, I mean, data is huge, and more importantly, figuring out how to utilize data to improve your business. One thing today, any bulk loads member, they can get on the load board, and we have a rates data analytics where you can pull up rate data. So if you want to see what the average rate is from Wichita to Kansas City for a hopper load, that data is available. So a lot of the data we collect, we try to give it back out to our members so they can access it and make better decisions. But it's something that as we've grown, getting on year 15 in business, we know that, we've collected a lot of data over the years, but more importantly, how do we use that data to empower our members
Yeah,
and customers to make better decisions? But yeah, that's one thing that we're probably more in the beginning phases, but really trying to figure out how do we focus more on data. And quite frankly, even over the last couple of years with the AI, there's a lot more things now you can do with data and AI to get information to your drivers better and more accurately. Where years ago you'd have to have, a room of data scientists and
yeah.
programmers and stuff like that.
The Excel Olympics, as I used to call it, and that was my next question. You touched on it about AI. We're starting to see a lot of benefits of AI really shortcutting the information process, right? It's able to get data, you give it commands, it's able to go, it's able to put a lot of different tables together and get information and present it to you in a consumable format. I never said it's a magic bullet, but it gets you 60% of the way there, and then you apply what God gave you between the ears and help you get the rest of the way there. But how do you see either AI or predictive analytics, which is more or less the same thing, kind of shaping, you know, the next phase of bulk logistics?
I truly think if you're not embracing I mean, you're going to be missing out. And, again, AI, we talk about insurance sounding like a scary word, but AI is kind of one of those same things that people are kind of fearful of. But when you're really looking at it, how do you empower it to do some of these tasks that would take humans in, and especially from a small business? I think if anything, AI is going to help empower small businesses more than anything because for a business that can't hire a back office person to do whatever task, a lot of that is now being automated through AI. You're looking at functions where now AI can build you out a load. We're seeing this on the broker side, but like looking at it from a carrier side, you can use AI now to, if you don't want to talk to a broker, you can hire, you can use AI bots to negotiate that. So a lot of people think of, hey, the other side of the fence is using this against me, but like I'm just saying from a carrier standpoint, you can be using the same technology, and carriers have the same technology now that these bigger companies do. It's a level playing field. So I think, again, we don't know where it's going to shape. It's a lot of it's still so new, but I think we're seeing a lot of opportunities and probably more for our carriers and our small businesses to help empower them that they wouldn't never had before.
That's awesome, man. You really come across as a sincere human being, and I didn't know you very well except for following you online, but I could tell you had those Midwest, that Midwest upbringing. You very different than me from the East Coast, and much more aggressive and much more. Let's get to the point. You know what I mean? Where you elaborate very well when you tell and respond to some questions. But you built a lot of digital platforms, right? Digital is less human interactive, but and more information based. How do you maintain a people first culture there at BulkLoads across your ecosystem, all of your businesses? Being that you're providing a digital access for people that doesn't typically require interaction with other human beings.
Yeah, great question. And it's probably one I think about. And as we've grown in business in our business units, and even as I've hired people to now take care of some of the tasks that I'd have to take to, it's allowed me to focus more on our people. And I say people as our internal, our employees, but also our customers. Said this earlier, I'm on the road a lot visiting people. For me, I get no greater joy than going out and visiting with customers, that being farmers, truckers, shipping companies, and really hearing their story. And I think that's where we can still use technology, but still have a human element on it. And obviously, I'm more the face of the company. But yeah, we utilize that for a couple of reasons. But like, I want people to see that there are people behind the technology, and that's one reason why we're on the road. We have. It used to be we still have the Bulk Loads podcast, but it's really morphed into our Bulk Loads YouTube page. But we go out and tell the stories of our truckers, of our farmers, of our shipping companies, anybody in our ecosystem. But we're doing that for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we started this podcast to be a voice out there for the industry, but to help people. So if we can go out and interview someone that's started, he's got a trucking company. Well, I'll just give you a couple examples. Like one trucking company we visited out in Colorado, they were showing us how they get their trailers licensed in Idaho and they can save thousands of dollars a year. Well, and it's totally legit, legal to do. Well, if we can get that information for other people to see and them do the same thing, man, we've just helped and provided value for these other companies.
Absolutely.
If another company, they've built a truck wash and now that truck wash is producing $50,000 a month in revenue, that may be another opportunity for a guy on the other side of the country to say, man, maybe that's another way that I can diversify. So it's a trifecta, but we're out there on the road, so we're still providing that human element. We're visiting customers, we're sharing great content, we're showing how people are prospering and sharing the story of really of America, of agriculture and trucking. And yeah, I'm always thankful that I get to be a part of it. So yeah, it's super fun. I, I get emotional when I think about it.
That's awesome, man. I have just a couple questions left for you. One is here about your business, and I'm going to ask you a personal question. When you look across your ecosystem, as you refer to it, right, your different businesses, we talked about bulk loads, the freight funding, the insurance. You have others and more coming. When you look at this, let's fast forward to retirement age. What impact are you hoping to leave on the overall bulk freight space?
Yeah. One thing I did several years back, and I encourage other people to do, or listeners, and this is something I do, but it's like if you get a chance, write up your own obituary.
That's an
And
interesting thing.
and you're thinking about the end in mind, but I've done this. I actually have a copy of it. It's in one of my desk drawers. I need to hang it up on the wall, but really write up what you want to be remembered by. And for me, it's really I want to be able to know that I had an impact in this industry, specifically on bulk trucking and agriculture. I grew up in agriculture, grew up in the farming community. I want to, I would love at the end of my career to make sure that I had a positive impact on small town rural America where I came up on. So that's number one. I think before that, and I should actually say what's probably more important than that, I want to make sure that I've been a good and faithful servant to the Lord Jesus Christ. I want to, I've messed up and I've had more mistakes and failures and along the way, but man, at the end of my life, I want to, when I face Jesus one day, I hope and pray that he tells me, well done, good and faithful servant. So that's huge. But then, yeah, also, people that are listening to this that are in business, that have started companies, entrepreneurs out there, creators, they know that, you know, there's a pull in life, of creating something, having an impact, but also making sure that, you're still a great husband and a great father out there, a great business, person in the community. And all that can't ever happen at once. There's phases in life where you're more involved in business, where you're more involved in family, where you're more involved in faith. But I think always just making sure, I want to make sure at the end of my life that, that I was still there for my wife and my kids. So yeah, that's just as important.
That's awesome, man. We're a Kindle-based company here, and so when you talk about being a good servant, I mean, you know, uh, you know, I'm, I don't practice as much as I should, but our CEO, our founders, our executive team, I mean, it's all about glorifying God, and
Amen.
so I totally get it. You know, so here's a personal question, and we'll end on this note. So if I were to kidnap your best friend and I were to take him or her and lock him into a room with one point of egress and I held the magic key to get out, and I said, I want you to tell me something about Jared that he does not want the rest of the world to know. What would they tell me?
Hmm. I think that person would probably say that Jared's never believed in himself as much as people have believed in him.
That's astonishing. I
Yeah.
mean, I would say that for what you've done, and I don't know all of it, but from what I've read and from what you say is coming, I would say you'd have to probably believe in yourself to make all that stuff happen, you know?
Yeah. It's tough, and I hopefully I say that in a humble way, but I think that, I've said this before on a podcast, but, that's my biggest worry always in life is, did I do enough? And I think that's something that, um, probably has always haunted me. I mean, my whole life, and I think there's a reason why, some people build and create and can't stop doing that. You talked about retirement, and, that's something I just never think about. And, I think, um, I honestly, I don't believe in that there is retirement. I don't think God's ever done with us. There's different seasons of our life, and maybe it's maybe not involved as much in business, but influencing others. So yeah, I think for me, my biggest worry or fear is that one day I don't have purpose, and, that probably haunts me more than anything.
And it probably drives you, it
Yeah, and it
probably drives
drives, yeah. But and it's not a, I want to say this out there, that's not healthy. So I've I've had counsel on that as well, but it's something that's always at the back of my mind.
appreciate the honesty. As we close out here, you've built solutions that really serve the backbone of American logistics, specifically around carriers and shippers that move bulk commodities every day. And your stories, it really reminds us that innovation isn't just about technology, but it's about relationships and
Mhm.
reliability that really drive to make the industry better. And for everyone on the road, you are a sincere human being, probably a really great guy. Your wife is probably really lucky as you are. And I would say that it's been a joy to talk to you. And one thing you didn't know is that Colleen messaged me in the middle of this, telling me that you've been her favorite guest so far.
Oh,
And that this is an incredible episode of what we've shot. So thank you so much for coming on. I know you're a super busy man. You probably get a lot of requests for this stuff, but we're friends of yours here at Konexial, and we really appreciate what you guys do. We share a lot of mutual customers. I mean, our primary focus is the ag space, so I totally understand what you're talking about. But how do people find you? How do people find BulkLoads? I mean, give yourself some credit here, and if somebody's listening to this and wants to get involved and wants to see your product or talk to you, how can they find you?
yeah. I was just gonna mention that if you didn't mention that. I love connecting with people, and, I always try to make time, to connect with people on a personal level. First and foremost, if you want to connect with me, I'm avid on LinkedIn. That's probably my social media spot that I camp out on the most. But yeah, just search Jared Flinn on LinkedIn. I will for sure connect with you. Send me a message on there. But that's number one. If you want to look at our companies, go to BulkLoads. All of our umbrella companies are under there. Again, I talked about this earlier. I spend probably 60% of my time with our media company, doing videos and being on the road. So really welcome listeners to check out our YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube, type in BulkLoads. Please hit the subscribe button. But yeah, you'll see a lot of our videos. We don't really talk a lot about BulkLoads, but we just talk about the stories of our customers. We're very firm on that. A couple of things, and I'll close right after this, Jerry. But yeah, a couple of things just practically always want to tell people out there, uh, that are looking at improving or starting businesses, like, man, all the research is out there. You just got to be willing to find it and invest in it. And it's baby steps every day. But I think I always hear it from our customers and I'm on the road, but like a lot of these people that have built tremendous companies, we know this, it does happen overnight, but these people are almost like fearlessly searching for knowledge. They're out there trying to get better. They're not on the road listening to music or listening to, I'm gonna just say, I was gonna say Fox News, but radio. I mean, they're listening to podcasts and audiobooks and things that can make them better. Over my lifetime, I don't always get it right, but man, I try to study the market. I'm 45 and I know that there's so much more that I need to learn. There's so many things that are at our fingertips today that you have the time to keep investing and building yourself. So man, I think, man, the world's our buffet. We just have to take advantage.
That is awesome. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and you spend a lot of time, you said, on the road and traveling. So thank you for taking 45 minutes with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. God bless you all.